guys. So today we are going to talk about realism versus impressionism. So realism, when they would paint, they would basically paint to capture like family pictures and what was actually going on at the time. Paintings were very precise and very, very detailed. Like you can actually see all of the details on this painting back here, even in the busts that are here and their faces. Like you can see shadows, you can see where the light is shining, but the colors are still a little bit muted and not very bright. And their goal was to preserve memories and preserve history. And then when Claude Monet came along and Vincent Van Gogh, they didn't necessarily, their goal was not to preserve what they were seeing. Their goal was to paint an impression of what they thought they were seeing. And so if you take this painting by Vincent Van Gogh, some of you have probably already seen it, it's called Starry Night. He has painted an impression of what he saw. Now in the picture, you can see a moon, you can see trees and a city or a town, but you also see these swirls in the sky that probably represent wind. Now we cannot see wind. So he just painted his impression of what he thought the wind looked like. Also, the difference between realism and this is you can actually see all the really short brush strokes of different colors because Impressionists were really, really good at painting light into their picture. And so, Vincent Van Gogh actually only lived until he was 31 years old. That's not very old, that's super, super young. I'm 38, so think about that in comparison. He suffered from what is called dementia, but back then they did not know what that was. They could not put a name to it. They really weren't aware of mental health and how it affected people's brains. And he became known as the mad artist because as he was suffering from these dementia attacks, he would lose consciousness and do things and later on have no recollection or idea of anything that he had done during those moments where he was kind of out of it. And so one day he got into a really bad argument with his roommate and in a fit of rage grabbed a knife and went towards his roommate, but instead Van Gogh cut off his own left ear and he lived. Well, years later, he was so afraid that these attacks were going to return and that something else bad might happen, and he didn't want to do that, so he shot himself, and that ended his life. Now, the project we're going to work on is a Van Gogh-inspired picture. Van Gogh really loved sunflowers. Sunflowers to him represented gratitude, which he also, once his roommate had moved on to his own home, Van Gogh painted him some sunflowers and hung it up in his friend's house. So that's kind of what we're going to do. So I'm going to show you how to do these short brush strokes, and I'm going to show you an example of what some of the kids in class did yesterday. Now, as you can see, all these little brush strokes, you can see them all pretty well, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, and that's exactly what I want. You're going to use 3 different colors. You're going to use regular green, and then you're going to mix green and brown and green and black. Because if you remember from last year, when you add black to any color, it tints it a little bit darker. So you can see all of this students' different brush strokes in different colors, and they're very short. So when you look at this one, this is what I do not want. I don't want just a big field of the same color green. but I do want you to cover your whole paper. Now, you don't have to paint on this large a scale because yours is going to be smaller. If you do want to paint something this large, that's fine, but it's not required. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take our paintbrush. I have a pretty big one. And I'm going to start with just my plain green. And I'm just going to paint a bunch of short little lines, just kind of scattered all over the page. They don't make them uniform, don't paint them in rows, just kind of scatter. You can overlap some of them. As you can see, a lot of mine are really close together. And what I was telling the kids yesterday was when you paint it, go 1, 2, 3, because that spreads it out. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, and it helps it dry a lot better. But this also helps fill the page up a lot faster. So once you're done with your green, you are going to take your brown and green and mix that up to get a different color green. Everybody in class was saying that this looked like army colors. So I have my green nice and mixed, and then I'm going to go right back in here and cover some of this white space up the same way I just did the other one. The goal is to get the page covered, and again, short strokes, not real long strokes, because we want these to look like different blades of grass, because this is going to be the background portion to our sunflowers. And if you have a lot of big globs of paint, go back over it. Spread it out a little bit more. So my last color I'm going to use is my black and green. Get that all mixed. And I'm going to go right back in and finish covering all this white space. This gives it dimension and gives it texture. And there you go. So that'll dry. And I want you to keep this, set it aside, because when we come back for the next art lesson, we're going to start the sunflower portion to this. And then we're going to put it all together with the last lesson. So keep it in a safe place. Make sure you send me a picture of what you painted today, and I will see you next time. Bye.